My name is Sandile Mfusi, aka Masandi. As you guys know, ngumfusi, ngumbobo, ngumuntu ngamanzi, ngufundisa ngolinda mkhodo, ngumsushwayo, ngunonkosi. Wena ufundisa ngamakhanda amadada abaye befundisa ngomquba. Inkosi ayiqhazi nani. So, I'm here to tell my story and welcome. So yes, Sandile Mfusi goes by the name Masandi, is a young man from Durban, South Africa. That's in a province called KZN. And I grew up in a big township, brother, that is called Umlazi. And, just growing up, I was just another little township boy. Grew up with my family, my mother and my father, and my two brothers. And yeah, man, I grew up in a church environment. My mother and my father built a house 2 houses away from my grandmother's house, my mother's mother. And it was always like just a warm family, warm environment where the family was just huge. We were all just one big family. Where on Sundays we'd have like big Sunday lunches. And my family was one of the prominent families in the area, simply because when I was, just before I was born, my grandmother had like a tavern that she was running, and I think it probably stopped operating just shortly after as I was growing up as a young kid. And my grandmother, I think she was the biggest influence because she had such a big heart, and people that would come hungry, she would literally just cook up a meal and just serve, and I think that was the pillar of the family. This big experience of just people and the love for people and just the love of community and people just with good hearts, and pretty much I think that's just a short summary of how I grew up in Umlazi. So welcome to the Black Dog. I think acting came about when I was very young, so just growing up, I was used to watch like a lot of TV, and obviously, as a kid, like there's certain things that you're drawn to, and I think I used to just mimic everything I'd see on TV, and I think that's the interest, like the way it was birthed, and as I grew older, I got into obviously high school, and I started getting involved in drama, and I'd take drama classes, extramural drama, and by the time I got to varsity, I did a couple of modules that focused on performance and drama and stuff. So the interest grew, and by the time I was done with varsity, that's when I got my first opportunity to start acting. What I'm trying to master, other than acting and music, is the artistry of business, and I think I've been doing that for a bit over 5 years now. Just trying to, solidify my position in business. I've have an interest in property, and I've been doing property for the longest time. I started off at home, just managing some rooms, and to a point where I had my own situation going and I could do it So it's just been a thing of growth, and it's been that process, and the other opportunities also, because obviously being an entrepreneur is just finding opportunities and capitalizing and actually making money out of that. And but I'm more of a person who likes to align my interests, and it has to make sense for me. you know um, so yeah, that's basically that. Business is really another interest that I'm trying to get better at, and I think year by year I'm starting to get it. But obviously music and acting takes the majority of my time. Um, but yeah, I do believe that I am a business. Me as Masandi, I'm a brand and I'm a business, so I need to get better at that field. First genres that I listened to growing up as a kid were firstly gospel, because I was a church boy, and at home also, like, we always used to sing like these gospel songs, and a lot of soul and R&B. My late aunt, I got the most influence in terms of like the type of music that I would listen to, because she would blast her car like every Sunday without fail, and she'd play Abu, Mariah Carey, Donovan Ross, Marvin Gaye's, um, Tevin Campbell's, like this whole lot of soul R&B. So that was always like the music that was just always around, that I would listen to as a kid. I think when I was growing up, the soul R&B was the biggest part, of me learning how to express myself musically, because it was always, um, music about love, and music about, what's in your heart and what's in your soul, and what trying to express, from within, and that was always what I was listening to, obviously, and I think that was, yeah, the biggest influence, if I could say. So when I was in varsity, I joined a group that was called Niche Family, and that was the first group that really pioneered the sound of hip hop in Durban. It was a trio. Okay, it was actually four of us at first, um, and I was the only vocalist, and it was just rappers. And yeah, we just did so much in the city to just raise the flag for Durban. We opened for Lil Wayne, we opened for Fat Man Scoop, we opened for. But anyway, basically, we did from 2010, FIFA 2010. Um, and there was just quite a lot of movements that we were doing, We had music videos on Channel O and MTV Base, and that was like a big thing, because, hip hop wasn't the biggest thing, and house was dominating, and we were just, we just cut through the noise. We were able to cut through the noise, and people really recognized us as, the hip hop guys that were always performing at the biggest parties, performing and representing hip hop. So the time I got discovered by KO, but I was literally pursuing presenting. I was trying to present. I was trying to just crack it in the industry, and I remember I just interviewed him, and shortly after the interview, after their performance, we ended up just chilling, the whole Cast Time live crew, and we just ended up having conversation, and to my surprise, he was like, "Yo, I know your music. I've been hearing your music. There's this guy who's in the label who, at the time, he was called Smashy, who is now known as Uzinga, and he used to play my music to the guys all the time. Like, oh, there's this guy, this type." and through that he knew my music, and he was like, no, he offered to just invite me to the studio. He was like, "Yo, next time you're in Joburg, just pull up to the studio, let's make some music, and it'd be awesome." And then shortly after that, I think about 2 weeks after that, hits me up. He's like, "Yo, I'm working on an album, and I think you the dude for this feature." And he flew me up to Josie, and that was the first encounter in studio that we had. It was 2009 that I could say changed my life around, and I think it was the first experience of a near-death situation for me. I was involved in a car accident with a friend of mine that I was in varsity with. I was a passenger, and unfortunately, he passed out while on the steering wheel, and he hit the car. He hit the truck, in fact, as he turned the curve, and car capsized for a couple of meters. All I remember is that I came out the car. Um, Everything seemed normal at the time. All I wanted to do was just go back home. I decided not to go to the hospital. As soon as I got home, I couldn't move my neck. I couldn't move much. And at that point, my brother decided to take me to the hospital. And I got to the hospital, did x-rays, and yeah, it was quite serious. I had fractured my cervical vertebra by my neck on the top, on the third disc was fractured, and that led to me being in a metal brace. So it was called a neck brace, like that surrounds your head. And I was stuck in that for like a good 3 months. That accident opened my eyes in many ways, and God wanted me to be used by Him, to bring light, and just as an instrument of light. And I think at that point I knew that somewhere, somehow, in my career, there'll become a point where I will sing or make music that is more based in bringing light. And for me, at that point, I felt like it was more gospel than anything. And hence why I am where I'm at today. I feel like it was always part of the journey, it was always part of the plan. Because I didn't even plan for me to actually do gospel. I was never like, oh my gosh, one day I want to be a gospel singer, and it's never been a thing for me. But I think the more that you let go the more you let go and let God, is the more your story unravels the way it's supposed to, and the way that God has planned for you. As much as you don't feel that you're fit for it, or you're not deserving of being in that position, but I think my story played out the way it played out because it was supposed to play out the way it played out, not the way I wanted it to play out. Firstly, I don't think I make gospel. I think I just make music that is of light. I bring a message of hope, inspiration, and I just make music that changes people's lives. That gives people a sense of motivation also. And I think for me it was always just to have an impact. So the pact that I made was to just be used by God in any way that He wanted to use me. And I was open, obviously, for anything, because, as I said earlier, it's only God that has the full story. He has the full plan. There's a scripture that says the steps of a good man are ordered and directed by the Lord, and that's one of the verses that I live by. Is that I let God just order and direct my steps, and even decision making that I make. So the pact was just part and parcel of the story and the steps, um, and they've ordered me to be in this place today. I feel like gospel needs to be broader. It needs to be an expression of one. Um, I can praise and worship God in my own way. And it doesn't necessarily mean that there must be a traditional way of doing it. I believe that He has created me also in His image, and I'm a creator myself. So that means I can create different ways of also, you know, um, doing gospel or doing God's work. I'm just creating my own lane and path. And I believe that God is leading me to that. I make gospel slash inspirational music new by just being me, just using each and every single element of myself and expressing myself the way I would express myself. And that's not necessarily the way that has been seen or done before, I think. I'm yet to see an artist in South Africa who's gone down the route of being R&B hip hop guy, who's doing home, who's doing a bit of piano, a bit of that, and all these influences, and then all of a sudden just comes in, does a gospel slash inspirational genre. The majority of my target market is the youth, because obviously I'm the youth, and I believe in inspiring. That's who I am. That's who I've been mentored to be. That's who I've been raised to be. Is to inspire, and I inspire to make a difference, especially in my target market, which is the youth, from different platforms, and whether it's your acting, whether it's the music, music videos, people see me there, radio, I influence people in different ways, and also such things as like the Trust God tool that I'm currently on, that I created to target the youth, and that's basically just me going to high schools, tertiary institutions, even churches, and inspiring the youth to follow their dreams and to just believe in whatever that they have going on in their minds, whatever dreams that they have in their minds, and just to let them know that it's possible if you trust God and if you have faith and if you're willing to work hard. I think that's the whole thing about the Trust God tools. So kaleidoscope, in definition, in my own special definition, is that it's an instrument of light. So it's basically an instrument of light that has broken bits and pieces within it, right? And if you're able to see through those broken pieces, you'll see the beauty that's inside, right? I believe that I'm an instrument of light, and that's what I'm basically trying to give people, an instrument of light through this project. And I believe that, as much as there's broken bits and pieces within me and in my stories, I feel like there's beauty in that, and that people can find that beauty, and they can, resonate, and they can also, be inspired by those stories that I have to tell through the project. The first gospel song that I actually wrote was Itemba, and that was in, I think it was 2019. And as a matter of fact, I actually didn't write it physically. I feel like it was one of those songs that just got downloaded like in my spirit, because literally I got the beat from DJ Gugwa, and got the beat, and when I started playing this beat, I was just overwhelmed with emotion to a point where like I just started tearing up, like I started crying. I didn't understand what was going on, and I think as continued listening to the beat, then I just had these lyrics just flooding, and luckily I have a studio set up, and I just put on my mic real quick and put on the beat, and I just going in, just recording everything that was coming to mind, and it was one of the most beautiful experiences that I've had in my career. So the writing process for me going away now, it's pretty simple. I think I had come to the end of the EP and recording, and it was the last song that I was recording, one of the last songs that I was recording. Yeah, I got the beats when I was in the studio. So with this EP, like I had this thing that I do, where before I get to studio, like I'm praying about it, praying about the session, and when I get to studio, we have a joint prayer. Like we just have a quick, even if that's just me that's praying, just pray, just for God to, intercede, for God to also just be involved and fully, and to lead me in whatever that I'm writing, whatever that I'm singing, melody-wise and everything. And it was one of those songs that I felt like I hadn't said thank you. I hadn't said, thank you for everything that's been happening in my career, in all aspects. So as I grew, I was still certain. I was like, yo, this is what I'm good at, this is what I want to do, and I'm gonna make it this area of my life. Did I ever have any doubts? Yes, definitely. I think as you're growing up again, you grow up and you see, you see these challenges that you face, and you stop focusing on the interior, and then you start focusing on the exterior and what's happening in the world, and things that you're facing, everything that's a blockage. It starts giving you doubts, like, maybe it's not gonna happen for me. Like I've been doing this for so long, and the big ideas that I had as a kid still haven't come to fruition, and then maybe that doubt kicks in a little bit. But in the back of my mind, I was always sure that I'm gonna make it, and I'm not sure at which point that I make it, but because I didn't bring you guys that question too. But I do feel that I'm gaining traction, a lot of traction, and I am closer to achieving my goals and my dreams. So I don't necessarily believe that awards should control your story or the way your journey pans out. I feel like it's an accolade, and it's something to be proud of. By God's grace, I'll win it. But I do believe that. So I don't think it's gonna shape anything for me in terms of how I move forward. But I think it's definitely gonna just give a stamp of approval that I'm doing this thing, and it's happening. And there's recognition for it, and my story and how it pans out, it's how God plans it out, and I believe that that's the only person that can really control how it rolls out, and that's how I'm led, and that's how I will go forward. Hopefully that answers your question. I believe that I am forming a bridge between secular music and gospel music, where these two worlds are not supposed to meet. We are all God's children, and we all deserve to hear a good message, experience the light. So I feel like my history being in circular music for so long. That's the biggest influence that I have, especially my music, my persona, how I carry myself. In fact, I had this one interview and they asked me why gospel? Because the way you move, the way you carry yourself on stage, you could never say it's gospel. I was like, who said there's a way of carrying myself? When I do gospel, because I believe that I just need to carry myself the way I am. And my story is my story. It's unique. A person who's more into circular music, they must feel that they can enjoy gospel music or inspirational music. And a person who maybe does gospel shouldn't be so judgmental about a person who does circular music, or maybe try to go deep and understand what it is that led them to tell their story, because they also got story to tell. And I feel God uses everybody as an instrument in some kind of way. So I feel like I'm just making that bridge between the two. Plans that I have for my music is just to go bigger, to go grander. I believe that my voice needs to be heard on an international platform. I've always seen myself as an international artist. From the get-go, even when things were not going so great for me, but I was like, okay, cool. I don't know how, but I know that I deserve to be on the international stage. So that's where I want my music to be, and that's where I'm trying to get it to. And as time goes by, I feel that we'll have that progression, and we'll get to that status of being an international artist.